He was the Chief British Medical Officer. I said, I need to look after these, or you need to look after these aircraft along the way. Do you have any ground crew prisoners of war? He said, yes, I have. So I said, could you bring one or two down? And I'll brief them how to look after them. This was done, and he stood there and listened to it all. And he said to me, I've just been listening to you, and you speak German far better than my interpreter. Would you stay for a couple of days and do an special operation? I said, well, I can't do 2 days, but I could do one. What is the special operation? He said, well, we are going to liberate the concentration camp at Belsen. And he said, be at the mess at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll have all the vehicles ready and off we'll go. When I turned up at 8 o'clock, the vehicles were what I would call Land Rovers. They were certainly not armoured cars. I said to him, if we're going to fight our way in, why haven't we got armoured cars? And he said, it's all changed. What happened was, this is the day we're talking about, remember, was the 15th of September, 1945. He said, on the 12th of September, the Germans, 2 German officers approached 2nd Army headquarters carrying a white truce flag, and informed us that Belsen had 20,000 cases of typhus, and they had ring-fenced it in with Hungarian troops, fixed bayonets, etc., because they reckoned if any of the inmates or guards escaped, we'd have a plague in Europe which could match the Black Plague. So the 2nd Army totally agreed with this, and a truce was made that the Germans would wait till we brought a medical unit, went in, and they would hand over and go off elsewhere to fight against us elsewhere. So on 15th September, we approached Belsen, and at the gate there were the guards and commandant were all lined up, and we took over. Brigadier officially wasn't taken over till the next day, but he was a medical man and was very interested in finding, as he put it, what made the creatures that ran this lot tick. And he said, I'm going to conduct a psychological interrogation, not the official army one, which will probably follow a day or 2 or 3 days later. He said, I want to confront these people, find out what makes them tick. So he said, you go off. They gave me a surgical mask. Go off and look around the place for the morning. We'll meet for an army lunch and conduct the interrogation in the afternoon. So I went, trotted around, And it is difficult to describe the utter horror of this place. Everywhere, this is a huge area, bigger than your airfield here by far. We estimated there were 10,000 dead and rotting bodies lying all over the place. Quite utterly appalling. No attempt had been made to bury them for the last week at least, because they knew the game was up and what the hell, they weren't going to get involved. And I went round, and it was difficult to understand how you could communicate with these people, because the ones that were still alive and were moving, shuffling around in their long gowns, were obviously zombies on the edge of death. I stopped. There were mostly women, incidentally, 2/3 of them were women. Stopped and talked to them. Nothing registered at all. And I was talking their language, but it wasn't getting through. They were completely, utterly demoralized and dehumanized. Because I remember the first woman I talked to, wearing a long, drab black skirt. I said to her, "Look, you don't have any more worries. We're here and you're free." I didn't get a glimmer of a reply. And while I stood talking to her, she was just urinating where she stood. They were totally dehumanized, behaving like animals. Anyway, I moved on and went into the barracks. If I had seen horror, I was to see it at its maximum here in the barracks. The barracks were about, each one 30 feet long by 16 maybe. And as you went in, there was a narrow passage between 2 rows of bunks. Or 3 bunks at each side, going along, 3 all along. Open wood slats. Normally speaking, we expected one to be in a bunk. Far from it. In the bottom bunks there were usually 1 or 2, in the middle ones about 3 or 4. The top ones we find as many as 7. Because the horror was, the ones in the top bunk lay and messed through the slats onto the ones below. They in turn messed through the slats on the ones on them. Underneath the bottom bunk was a pile of feces, probably almost 2 feet deep. The stench in that place was unbelievable, quite unbelievable. To this day, I still get whiffs of it in the morning and think, my God, how could anybody live through that? But there you are. That's how it was. And these people in the bunks, of course, were all dying. There was none would survive. It was just a question of time. Anyway, I went and saw the brigadier again, and in the afternoon we had our meeting, and he said, "Now, I'm going to have the camp commandant, Yusuf Kramer, brought in, and I will ask you what questions to ask him. Tell you what questions to ask. So, Kramer was brought in, stocky fellow, maybe 5'10", 5'11", and we sat down. The brigadier asked all shackles to be taken off his wrists and his feet. He wanted him to be fully relaxed when he answered. And he said, ask him if he had his time over again, would he do it all the same? To our utter surprise, he immediately said, yes, jawohl, which is an accentuated yes. And so, Brigadier was a bit taken aback at this, but he said, ask him what motivated him. So I asked him. Kramer said, you've got to realize or understand what my youth was like, to understand my motivation. Yeah. I came from a poverty-stricken family after World War II, desperately depressed at what had happened to Germany. And he said, you've got to realize I was small, I was hungry all the time, and we lived in abject poverty. My parents kept telling me it was all the fault of the Treaty of Versailles, the agreement made by the British to impose on the Germans after World War I. He said, as a youngster, I didn't understand what the Treaty of Versailles was, so I would go to the library and find out. And he said, then I began to understand. And he said, what that treaty had done was take away the pride of Germany. And he said, when you take a country's pride from it, it will do anything to get it back. He said, I looked around, joined the Hitler Youth, because here was a man promising us he would give us back that pride, and we lost. And joined the Hitler Youth, then the SS, was eventually selected as a guard at Auschwitz. His job at Auschwitz was to meet the trains there as they came in with the inmates, get them out of the trucks, the cattle trucks, and he had to divide the fit from the unfit. The fit went into Belsen, where they'd be worked to death anyway. The unfit straight to the gas chambers. So it was. He didn't seem to have any emotion about having to do a job like this. Obviously he did it well, because he was then promoted and sent and charged at Belsen. Then we came to the lady, I say lady, Commandant, the worst human being I have ever met. She was renowned at Auschwitz for her addiction to cruelty. Cruelty to her own sex. She was about 25, a farmer's daughter. I know I'm flying farmers. And for that era, not a bad looking girl, but totally addicted to cruelty. Some of the things she did to her own sex are too utterly horrific to talk about here. But she was the cruelest human being I have ever met. We asked her, the brigadier said, ask her the same questions. I asked her if she had a time over again, would she do it again? He just sat and refused to answer. She said, keep on asking. After about 4 or 5 times round, no reply. Then suddenly, she leapt to her feet, gave the Hitler salute, called at the top of her voice, Heil Hitler. We never got another word out of her. That didn't save them. Both were condemned to be hung. And I was so utterly appalled at immigration. I thought I must see this happen, or make sure it happens, not necessarily see it, but make sure it happens. I was operating in the Middle Germany at that time, and near Lüneburg, which was the headquarters of the British Army, and they were going to hang about 47. And they brought in the British official hangman, Albert Pierpoint. And he was a weirdo. I've never met a man with such job satisfaction. But he, for some reason known only to himself, rationed himself to 9 a day. And so I went up because I heard Grayson was going to be hung, so I went and saw Pierpoint, and he said, I said to him, would you mind tying her hands behind her back in case she tries to give the Hitler salute? And he said, don't worry, sir, I tie all my hands behind her back. So she was dispatched, as was Kramer. But it is quite appalling to think what went on. I said to Kramer, why are there so many dead bodies lying around? 10,000 approximately. He said, well, our death rate was 500 a day. And he said, in the last days, we were completely disorganized. And we nobody to bury them. And it just all got away from us. But this is the utterly appalling state the place was in. I had the honor to go back recently with the Queen to show some Wilson, and it's a weird place because at the end of the day we had to use flamethrowers to burn the whole place to the ground. It was the only way of getting rid of the typhus lice. And so today there is but nothing, all just open ground with memorials here and there, but no sign of any of the horrors that took place before, except grass mounds of bodies. There would be as many, some mounds had 800 people in them, some had a couple of hundred. And the Queen, to her everlasting credit, walked the whole length of these mounds and obviously was very, very deeply touched by the whole situation. So there we are. Right, well, let's move you on.